Hazur, there is no doubt that you have a tremendous memory and knowledge. I do understand that in Hazur's case, it is a special gift from God to the Khalifa. But however, can you please throw some light on how one's memory can be improved? Is it vast reading, or are there some special techniques or mental exercises as well?
Well, there are techniques as well as mental exercises of which I personally do not approve, because they make the thinking mode rather artificial, and the common social pattern is different, and committing to memory is a different mode altogether once you learn through these books. And sometimes it does much more damage to you than any good. Just for trickstery, for show business, that is good. I once was told by a friend in government college that he had got a very good, very interesting book on how to improve memory, and he demonstrated it to me. That he said, look here, you take 50 names, anything, odd names. Not only shall I remember them forward, but I shall count them backwards as well, by just hearing once. So I tried it upon him, and he did it exactly as he had predicted. So he said, this is because of this book, and from now on you will see how I improve things in my college and things. And as far as I remember, he failed in his examination. So the point was that during that period, that poor person has completely a broken personality. The system which he had learned right from the childhood of remembering things was at odds with the system he had learned through that book. His case was like poor Imtiaz, the great cricketer of Pakistan, who had a natural way of playing cricket, and he was a very forceful batsman, the most beautiful and powerful batsman that Pakistan has ever produced. And he could muster runs in a matter of minutes, while others would take an hour for that number of runs to be collected. Unfortunately for him, he was sent for further training to England, and he was trained. He was told that you have hold the cross bat, which is not good. So this is the perfect way of holding the bat. After that correction, it was very rarely that he could make runs. People could go out of his love to watch him, but the performance was much poorer and below the imtiaz which we had known earlier. So this is what happens sometimes by artificially improving things and forgetting your own natural born style. In memory, this can happen. For instance, that was a small trait of memory that didn't improve my memory anyway. When I learned that trick, I could immediately do that. But I found that it started interfering with my memory, so I left it. The most important thing in improving memory is by forgetting about it. The more conscious you are, the less you can keep the memory intact. It is the fear always which interferes with the memory. Otherwise, there is an automatic recording system, a most highly advanced computer, the like of which cannot be found anywhere. That computer has been made to work automatically. And that automatic capability of the computer is in a way fixed. Everyone is born with certain qualities, but if he is fair and normal and working without fear, he can use those capabilities to the maximum. But if somebody tries to artificially improve things, I think more likely it is that he would get damaged. Yet there are some minor indications which can be employed, and some Americans claim that they have employed to quite good advantage without interfering with the general system of the memory. For instance, some people have a special drawback in certain regions of memory. Some people cannot remember names. Some people cannot remember the titles of the books, but remember the subject matter very clearly and in detail. Some people cannot remember the events as much as names. Some people cannot remember the numbers and so on and so forth. So, many systems are devised by some American jugglers to improve memories on all these heads. For instance, telephone numbers. How can they be remembered? Now, first you have to think from 1 to 9 numbers and give each number a particular letter. For instance, 7, if it reminds you of L, inverted L, you call it L, and get yourself familiarized with each letter so much so that it begins to come to your mind automatically. Then transfer the numbers to those letters and make a story out of that. For instance, if the letter C stands for O, or O would stand for O, let's call some other thing. C stands for, let's say, 3, or E would be better for 3, all right. E for 3, and L for 7. So there is 3 7 in the telephone in this order. So you have 2 letters. One is E and the other is L. So they advise you to immediately think of a story in which the first letter begins with E and the second with L. Now, you know you have to pay quite some attention to this and think hard for some time. And instead of doing that, if you just repeat the letters in your mind and arrange them, it is easier to remember that. And particularly after some time you will forget what the story was about E and L. And you will remember the letters, but you will not remember the story. You will not know in what order that those letters are to be put. So they are just playthings. I have experimented on these things, and I've got a few books on memory improvement, but ultimately I rejected them as artificial, meaningless. The best answer to your question is that be natural. Nothing is better than that. Don't be under stress. And we know that Hitler made use of this and put it to a good employment during his preparation of scientists for Germany, rapid preparation. What he did, what it was advised to him by some very intelligent scholar of Germany, was that most people who appear in the examination with the examination fear, they remember things for a while under pressure and tend to shed them the moment the pressure is relieved. And because of the pressure, it is again very difficult for them to remember things. So we lose many an intelligent student who could otherwise have learned much more if he were not milled through the stress of the examination, and he was not, if he were not remembering things under pressure. So the system he advised was that do away with this system of examinations. Rather increase the number of books. Because he said if you have to memorize the whole book, what you have to do is that for one book you have to spend sometimes 100 times as much time. Then you would casually read the book and forget about it. So according to this advisor of Hitler, what happens is simply this, that you go through the examination and memorize things, but even in the present system, even after you have memorized them and have stood come out with flying colors, yet after a while you will be just like ordinary students. You will have to consult the books for all those formulae which you remembered and memorized by heart after a lot of labor. And without consultation you still cannot be an efficient worker. So why not permit an ordinary student the same method which is implied anyway by every scholar ultimately? So the advice was, do away with this examination system and increase the number of books to be read by the students. On each subject, give a very wide reading list and tell them that you have just to read the books, you have not to remember. Forget about remembering, no stresses. Just go through the book, and then the base of knowledge would become so great and so wide, and without stress when you go through these books, the amount they would retain would be much more than they would retain otherwise. Sometimes children who fail repeatedly in examinations can't remember the history stories. They read a novel and they can relate the entire novel to their friends. So he said the only examination would be for a teacher or a tutor to just examine that student had read the books. He would come, I read that book. So occasionally he will find just a cursory examination, that if the student had read actually or not. If he has read, he would tick in that card on the list that he has read that book. So after that another and so on, and some practicals. Even those practicals would be without examination. It is reported that the generation of scientists which was produced under this system in Germany outshone every other generation. How far it is correct, this result, I don't know. But I know personally that the basics are sound. Read without stress, you will learn much more than if you read under stress of memorizing and remembering things. So for this while I can only say that much. But while on the subject of memory, I should like to relate a very interesting incident which took place here in the London Mosque. And during my stay here during 1956. Have I related to you before or not yet?
No.
Very interesting. Mir Mahmoud Ahmad Nasir, who is now the missionary in charge of Spain, he used to reside here in the mosque and I used to reside in some days outside Regent's Park. But I used to call here every week and plus many visits apart from the Jummah prayer. So during those days when Hazrat Muslim was also here, I think it was 55, not 56, 55, and middle part of 55. There was also a gentleman who was a temporary Waqf Zindagi for trade business. From Africa he was returning home to Pakistan. So he was also staying and we used to have good chats with him. It was very interesting. So once Mir Mahmood Ahmad Sahib complained that Maulvi Sahib, I have a problem with my memory. You are an experienced person. You know so many recipes for this and that. Would you kindly advise me something to improve my memory? So That Maulvi Sahib said, yes, of course, yeah, I can do that. In fact, he said, I have been using a particular prescription from improving memory for the last 32 years, and I know from personal experience that it is very good. So me, Mahmood said, give me the name, what the name is. He said, that I have forgotten. And then he kept on knocking. You know, he had the habit of memorize things, call back a thing. He would knock over his forehead, you know, like this. So he kept on knocking, but the call was not responded to. So there are recipes as well, apart from books. So, alarm please.